God, it's beautiful. Ha! I've been live here for the last minute and a half. Nice. Oh my God, technical difficulties. Alrighty. Hey guys, sorry about that. All kinds of technical issues. Now we're having storms here and problems with the Wi-Fi. Hey, welcome to Live at 5. It's Gordon Miller. Sorry for the delay. It's live at 5:40. What can I say? Anyway, I've been having some network problems with the storms we've been having, so I apologize for the late start. I also have calls that have overlapped, so it's, what can I say? Sue me. I don't have any real topics for today, so I'm happy to take whatever comments or questions you guys have. Um, if not, certainly we'll find something to talk about. I was talking with a, a buddy of mine, one of my partners, just prior to this, and Vishnu, I was live last Friday. So I normally was live, so um, missed a couple times before that, but appreciate you guys noticing I was gone. How do I view Biden's alleged mental decline over the last few years? What do you want? Biden's old as fuck. So, is he mentally incompetent? Probably. It was Ronald Reagan mentally incompetent during the last couple of years of his White House during years 7 and 8? Probably. In fact, a lot of people have said something to the effect that Nancy Reagan was really running the country for much of the last 2 years of President Reagan's term due to his Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Chances are that could be true. I mean, who knows? But Biden is, I think, equally difficult in that situation. So, but right now we have a retarded kindergartner as president. So, and that's an insult to actually retarded kindergartners. So, I will take literally anybody other than the idiot that's in the White House right now. So, it's just my opinion. We need somebody who and understands the political landscape and understands what it is to actually get stuff done. So, um, but it's I think Biden is unfortunately going to be the best choice. My guess is it'll come down to who he picks as vice president. So, it really kind of depends. Um, what's my view on the protest around the country right now? Okay, well, that's fine. So, in terms of let me close in and let me finish making my point. You're voting for him, Shrey. You're exactly right. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Do I think that at Biden's age, Biden would live to fill out an 8-year term? Probably not. And so for me, I think you're voting for whoever the vice president is going to be. Now, I would like to see Kamala Harris be the vice presidential candidate. I would have voted for Kamala Harris as president. Frankly, I think she is an amazing woman. a woman of color and a distinguished politician. She doesn't take any shit from anybody, and certainly not Trump. But she is something else. They want to do. I mean, she's been a prosecutor for for much of her career, and who better to spearhead judicial and law enforcement reform and a bunch of stuff like that, other than somebody with her capabilities. So I think Kamala Harris would be amazing. Sorry, my food allergies. I had dinner just before this, and I had beef, and I'm allergic to beef. So anyway, would I like to be president of the United States? No. I think being president of the United States is a horrible job. It doesn't matter how good you do; everybody thinks you suck, and I don't care how effective a communicator you are. Somebody's still going to screw you over for something. So, but so anyway, I'd be too rocking to be president of the United States. Well, I appreciate that. No, unfortunately, for me, I think everybody who takes that job ends up looking money in a position to be able to take full advantage of. Man, I'm losing my YouTube connection. Nice. So anyway, let's see here. Hey, Gordon, been following you on Quora and Instagram for a while. Off topic question, but what advice would you give yourself when you were 20 years old again? Well, so somebody just asked what would I do if I was 30? You just asked what do you do if you're 20? Unfortunately, not unfortunately. I mean, I was having this conversation with my buddy just before I had dinner and before the call here, or before the session, and I really think that people should find stuff that they enjoy doing. I did a bunch of stuff over the years in the government contracting game. Made decent money doing it. But if I had it to do over again, I probably would have made different choices. I would have focused on things that I really enjoyed doing. I was good at that stuff, and we made a bunch of money at it. But I don't think that I would have made the same decision to do that. In the same way. And I had a chance, and my buddy asked me. He says, can you pinpoint the actual time when you would have made a different choice? And so it really comes down to back in April of 2002, when I had gotten, G3 had a major government contract with the Army, contracts over $5 million. So the opportunity that was there was, here, hang on a second. See if I can figure out my technical difficulties here. There we go. Hopefully that's working again. So, I've had technical difficulties all day. But, at the point where Harmony was working on cutting edge technology in XML and our Army contract was in Java, the Navy had just taken a liking to cutting edge technologies. And, I went the more established route, working with stable technologies that people wanted to invest money in building systems for. And, between our commercial and educational and our government and our military stuff, we built 200 different solutions over the last 27 years. And, it's been great. But the interesting part is that I really wish I had worked on more cutting edge stuff. I was, talking with my buddy about the fact that I wish I didn't know much about Bitcoin back in 2011, but when Bitcoin crossed over $1 a coin, I remember I was going to buy like 10,000 coins, or 20,000 or something like that. And of course, now if you had bought 10 or 20,000, Bitcoins, and they're at 10,000, or even when it was up as high as almost 20,000 a coin, then you can imagine what that would have turned into. That's how people made millions of dollars. And I was so busy working on our projects that we were doing for the Medicare Waste, Fraud, and Abuse Investigation Team and a bunch of other stuff. And that was fun stuff to do, and it was a good cause, and we were helping to save the government money and things like that. But, ultimately, I really wish I had focused more on some of the more cutting edge stuff got in on some of the ground floor opportunities. I mean, I still made money on Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I still made money along the way in the other stuff. But it's just one of those kind of things where there have been lots of opportunities along the way where, unfortunately, some of the more technology. So I'm not sure why get Instagram or YouTube to continue to broadcast here. So anyway, but I wish that I had spent more time dealing with cutting edge technologies and things like that. I think it would have been a lot more fun. So somebody says, Yana says, I really respect your love of cars. Wonder if you're going to get a Tesla. Well, so I'm a internal combustion engine kind of guy. So I'm all about fuel based on exploding dinosaurs. But I tell you, if I did get a Tesla, it would be because of the amazing self-driving capability. I'm kind of at the point where, I've driven so many miles. When I was on our government military contracts, I was driving 50,000 miles a year. And I drove 50,000 miles a year for about 7 out of 10 years. Unfortunately, after a while, that kind of gets old. And so, I mean, I've driven, probably 500,000 or even 1,000,000 miles in the 30 some years I've been driving. I'm happy to get some other stuff done and let the car drive for a while. It's all good. But so, as much as I love exploding dinosaurs, the performance, 0 to 60 of the Teslas are pretty astounding, and I would have to definitely consider that pretty carefully. But what is my views on technology being misused these days? Yeah, I think technology in general is always going to get misused. I mean, there are people that will use it for various means and methods. And all right. All right. AJ, you said you like the way I characterize ICE operability. Dinosaurs are quite all the way extinct. Aren't quite all the way extinct. Yeah, exactly. So, sorry about the delay there, guys. I'm having network connection problems. My Wi-Fi is causing some kind of problem here. But in terms of technology being misused, I think people are going to use technology for whatever means and purpose they want. And sometimes it's not always the best and not always in the best interest of everybody who's involved in the technology. So just depends. But all right. Hopefully that'll stay. So anyway, I had a question earlier on Instagram. Uh, Thanks, I appreciate it. I had a question on Instagram earlier about what do I think about all the protests and things like that. Honestly, I had a whole thing on racism and all this stuff a few weeks ago, but I'm glad to see that we're making progress. I live here in Virginia, which is the heart of or the capital of the Confederacy. So this is sort of ground zero for a lot of the protests relative to the Civil War. And we have statues that honor generals from the Confederacy and things like that. And there's a bunch of legal battles going on right now about whether or not the statues can come down or whatever. But I know that this area relies on its history for a significant amount of tourism and other stuff like that. We also have a great Holocaust museum. But even though I have no idea why I have a great Holocaust museum, I mean, Virginia has like nothing major to do with the Holocaust. But the I will say though that it's I think it's long overdue. I mean, I really do think that in the 1960s, when the civil rights legislation went through, and again in the 1860s, when the Civil War was over, and in the 1960s, when the civil rights legislation went through. I mean, we should have made more progress in 150 years than we did. And so I think it's important that, um, I think it's important that we use this as an opportunity. And even brands changing for, Aunt Jemima waffles and Uncle Ben's rice and stuff like that. I mean, why are these symbols of slavery and racism still allowed to be products? I mean, we should have done away with those 50 years ago. I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, this stuff is long overdue. And I think it was just the right opportunity at the right point in history. You lock, half the nation down for 3 months. Everybody's going to get pissed off at pretty much anything. And, we've never told everybody that they had to stay home and they couldn't go out and things like that. It's not like putting them in solitary confinement, but you basically locked people down and people went fucking nuts. I mean, of course they are. I mean, that's part of the problem of what's wrong with our, judicial system and things like that. We have, more people incarcerated than, the next, what, 9 countries, combined. I mean, come on, give me a break. And most of them are for weed and other stuff like that. So, let's legalize weed, let's tax it, and let's hand it out to elementary school kids. I don't know, whatever the fuck. I mean, I just don't think it's the kind of situation that, you know, I don't think we're rioting about George Floyd. I think the system is unjust, and I think it's systemic racism is an integral part of the existing system, but it isn't particular to George Floyd. And again, I've said before, I don't think anybody should die in custody, but I think we're going to find out that because he had methamphetamines in his system and things like that, as well as fentanyl. Now, whether the fentanyl was given to him by the ambulance crew so he would not resist as badly going to the hospital, fentanyl suppresses respiration. And if he already has methamphetamines in his system, that's also going to suppress his respiration. And, George Floyd didn't die, at the moment the officer had his knee on his neck. He died an hour later at the hospital. And my guess is he died from whatever sedative he was given by the ambulance crew. And unfortunately, the officer is probably not going to be culpable. He didn't have any broken bones in his neck and stuff like that. And the autopsies differ on that. But I mean, he has cocaine in his pocket, he has methamphetamines in his system, and he has fentanyl in his system. And both autopsies came up with that information. So, I don't. That doesn't mean he should die. I mean, it just means that, I'm not saying he should be treated poorly for 9.5 minutes while the ambulance gets there. But but I don't think that, I don't think that we're all rioting over specifically George Floyd. I mean, George Floyd, did home invasion robberies and held a pregnant woman at gunpoint while he and his cronies stole all of her shit. And, he's multiple time felony offender, things like that. So he wasn't getting his life together. He was on drugs and had drugs in his pocket and on his possession in his system. So, I just think there has to be an amount of intellectual honesty about the conversation if you're going to have that conversation. I don't think that, the, I don't think that means that, we shouldn't hold the officers accountable for how they treat anybody in their custody and things like that. I think that larger discussion in terms of not treating people poorly in general, and certainly black people are treated disproportionately poorly. So, I think that certainly is warranted as well. And certainly enough people have died in custody and died being, abused. Now, if you look at most of the footage, those people are also resisting. So, if you're not going to, resist, but, then you're not necessarily going to be mistreated that way. But if you resist, then, I'm not saying they were justified. I'm just saying that, if you look at the optics of all of it, a majority of people who end up dying in custody resisted or, tried to, like the gentleman who stole the weapon from Rashawn or whatever, that stole the taser and he was firing at the police officer when he was shot in the back. Should the police officer have shot him in the back? No. But I mean, if you don't, he could just have easily have stolen the officer's weapon instead of the taser and would have shot both officers. So, I mean, it's hard to say. But yeah, I mean, so Vishnu, thanks for the comment. More people should be aware of the full circumstances. Yeah, they should. But again, the media is not covering that side of George Floyd. They're covering the side that they want to cover, which is George Floyd as the martyr for the cause. Where they want to lock up four officers, three of which had nothing really to do with it. One of the three of which said not to do that, but he was being outranked by the ranking officer on the scene, which is the one who's up for murder now. But I don't think they're going to be able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think that they're going to, be able to be able to prove it. So I think the fentanyl is what's ultimately going to be responsible, and the fentanyl is probably given to him at the hospital. So, but who George was in his personal life doesn't matter. Well, sorry, Noni, but it does. It does matter. It doesn't matter in terms of how he would be treated. But, if you watch the video, he was resisting arrest. He was in the back of the car and then fought back to get out of the car, when they were putting him in the car. So, he resisted and they were trying to get him under control. So I don't think that I'm not saying they should be judge, jury, and executioner. I'm just saying that, the people who, if you look historically, a number of people who have ended up dead in police custody have put up a significant amount of resistance to being in police custody in the first place. So, you can't, there's been a ton of people who have been apprehended by the police and didn't die. And a number of those people who didn't die, most of them didn't put up any resistance. So, and I get why he would resist. I mean, he's got cocaine in his possession. Cocaine possession is another felony. He's a two-strike felon. He's going to go back for his third strike. He was going to get life in prison. And so he's going to fight his way out of the back of the police car. I mean, I'm just saying, you have to be intellectually honest about this stuff. I mean, that's what the whole thing is all about. I mean, let's not sugarcoat who George Floyd was. So, and so there are definitely multiple facets to this, and I don't think anybody should be mistreated. I don't think anybody should die in custody. I think we should have some basic human dignity. But when people insist on resisting arrest, and especially when they know they don't have anything to lose because they're going to be going back to prison forever, then they're going to put up a struggle, and that struggle is going to result in them getting hurt or worse. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it happens. And I think that, in this particular case, it's something to consider. So that's all I'm saying. But anyway, the problem that I do see is that in this country we don't have a very extensive training program for law enforcement. You look at other countries, and other countries require about 3 years. I think we have about 18 weeks is what we typically have. So I think that there's room for improving the training that police officers get. I think there's room for improving the way in which law enforcement officers are screened. The officer that was responsible for putting his knee on the neck of George Floyd had killed or injured several other people, one in a major car chase, two others, I believe, in shootings, and others in some other physical altercation. And all you have to do is look at the police officer's record. I mean, it's on the web, and the officer has been cited multiple times. Now, why this officer, after years, literally years, several years of infractions, is still allowed to be a police officer? I mean, he went on a high-speed chase that resulted in the death of a minivan full of innocent people. I mean, good Lord. I mean, why is this officer still on the police force? So I think there needs to be some accountability for sure. And I think there needs to be better standards. I think there needs to be better training. I think needs to be better overall education. And, but, the whole idea of and I'm not even opposed to, supplementing criminal police interactions with like civil, local community advocates that are going to play a role in mental health and other things like that. The police are being asked to do way too many jobs. It's a difficult job enough as it is, and they don't get paid anything for it either. So, you got people that are going to be there, for other reasons other than what they're getting paid, and they're not very well trained, and it's a tough job. So, but Anoni has asked, let's take it to a better topic. Let's do that. So, how do you try to find purpose in your life? And I think that that's an interesting question. So, in terms of finding purpose, is important, and I think that the for me, it took understanding a variety of different assessments. And so I took my IQ assessment. I've taken several different IQ assessments to kind of understand the nature of my intellectual capacity. There's also ways to test emotional intelligence. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Peterson's, Jordan Peterson's 5 dimensions test at understandmyself.com. I've recently run into Kathy Kolbe's assessment, which is the Kolbe A assessment. It's at Kolbe.com, Kolbe. The Kolbe assessment is ridiculously expensive. It's like $55. And I don't think it was, it's 36 questions for $55. It's a stupid ass test. But, it was an interesting insight. Didn't really tell me anything I didn't already know, but it was an interesting to take the test. The Jordan Peterson test, I think, is, no, the Myers-Briggs test is, Vishnu is another one. So Myers-Briggs is, like, we used to be an INTJ until Quora, now I'm an ENTJ. I'm continuing to run the line on the J side. So, we'll see how that goes. But no, there's all different types of assessments, and I've enjoyed understanding the complexity of people's behaviors and their attitudes, and also what they're well suited for based on that. And so we now test folks for our internships that we have that are going to be working with us, and we assign the work based on the type of success that we think that they're going to have based on how they tested and those kind of things. So kind of interesting. But I think finding out who you are and what types of things you enjoy in life, and then finding ways to do more of that, is really the kind of secret. It's about finding yourself and finding what you like and what is about, what is the best thing for you, and then just doing more of that. What do you think you should accept? Do you think that you should accept what your capacity is based on the subjective view of these tests? Isn't that dangerous? No, I'm not talking about accepting limitations and things like that, and things. But I am talking about being able to understand how all these pieces fit together. So it's not one assessment or 2 assessments or 3 assessments. It's all the various assessments and how they kind of mesh together to give you kind of a picture of your interest and what you're good at and things like that. So AJ had a question over here. Hang on a second, AJ. I think it's good to experiment with that kind of testing. However, I have a boss who cherry-picked parts of results to fulfill certain narratives. Data is only as good as the conclusions you draw. I think that's probably a fair assessment, AJ. I had somebody that tested pretty poorly that really kind of surprised me, because we were going to give them a pretty significant responsibility this summer, and so she insisted that while the test brought out that weakness, and she acknowledged it was a weakness of hers, but she had found coping mechanisms to deal with the weakness. So because of the nature of the test, it brought out those that particular bias or weakness relative to what I was testing. And she acknowledged it. She admitted that that was a real weakness of hers. But the great thing was is that she had found coping mechanisms and ways around that that really were extraordinary. And she began to talk about that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. If I had simply gone on the assessment alone, I probably would not have brought her on for such an important task, and yet she's doing really well. So that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm all about that. I think it's fine. So I I'm really kind of surprised that the tests were able to determine stuff that people tried to compensate for, but it also doesn't give you the full picture in terms of their ability to move beyond some of those limitations. So it's a fair point. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we got here. Got another topic here. I will. Adult beverage. Sounds good to me. So, but I think that you have to get to know yourself, and you have to understand what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And I think you need to do more of that. I mean, a lot of people pick stuff. I've met a lot of people the last couple of years since being on Quora, and I've had people say, well, my mom or dad wants me to become a doctor or an accountant or an engineer or a lawyer or whatever. And I was like, so why do they want you to do that? Do you have a special skill that's makes you really good at those? No, not particularly. I mean, it just those make a lot of money, and I think that that's part of the problem. I think people are picking stuff based on what makes the most amount of money, and then they get through halfway through their lives, and they've spent 20, 30 years doing something they hate, and I just think that's a bad. I think it's a bad place to get to. I think for me, I enjoy brokering opportunities and putting people together with opportunities. That's why I enjoy the calls that I do with people that want to, work on bringing their opportunity to market or work with somebody else that we're working with and things like that. It's been great. So let's see. The purpose thing is big for most people because we spend a lot of time trying to make sense of our environment, but we spin our wheels. They're the most accessible jobs in India, sadly. Yeah, I know, Vishnu. I mean, it's not just India. It's those skills are portable throughout the whole world. So, uh, Siddharth says, "What's it like to live in developed nations? I'm from a developing nation." So you know what, Siddharth, that's a good question. So I would normally make a comparison based on some kind of comparison, in terms of um, relative to what it's like here versus what it's like elsewhere. And I don't know what it's like in a developing country. I do know that some things are harder to get, supplies and resources and materials. It takes longer to travel typically. You have to travel more for really serious healthcare needs and things like that. Water and power and things like that aren't necessarily as stable. And again, this is from working with the folks in Peru that we've worked with and things like that. So it's not just India. I mean, in other parts of the world, it's it is it is a real difference. Here we don't have to worry about that. There's a doctor right down the street, and so we don't have to, even if we have a really serious problem, there's a major hospital within a very short distance. Traffic can get bad sometimes in some cities, but not nearly as bad as it is in some parts of the developing world. You know, I think the real main thing is that we spend a lot less time worrying about certain things. Like we don't have to worry about whether we're going to go turn on the faucet and know that there's water, and we don't have to worry about whether there's power, and we don't have to worry about the stability of the supply chain infrastructure for food or things like that. And so and we don't have to worry about the fact that there isn't usually, except for under COVID here, sort of massive unemployment, and most families do manage to find a way to survive. And with the poverty level in some developing countries, whether that's India or Peru or anywhere else, it's a problem. I mean, a third of the people I understand in India are sort of functionally illiterate when it comes to things, so they don't read or write as well as everybody else, and but then they're not employed, so they may not need to read or write. They speak, which is fine, so that conversationally they can survive. But so, I think that, the illiteracy rate here in the United States is very low, and, everything else, it's just, but I agree, with Anoni. If you've got clean water and food and a steady roof over your head, it's not so bad. I think if we focus more on those things, on the core things that, tend to, benefit everybody, then I think that's a good place to start. So, let's see. Yes, I agree that, when we have so much given to us, things can become more challenging to seek out ways to challenge yourself. I agree with that. All of us as humans, billions of us, we all contribute to each other's survival. I don't know the purpose of life, and I beat myself up for it, but now I know the point of life is positive survival. Well, so Fred, I don't know that that's necessarily the purpose of life is survival. I think that I would like to think that we're all here to help each other, and so that's really why I've decided to spend most of my time here, really working with people and helping as many people as I can, and I really enjoy that, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to see people, when they schedule their calls and we get a chance to talk about their stuff, and we can kind of connect some of the dots for them and kind of help them move forward. So yeah, so Andre Bryant says we have a massive homeless crisis too, and you're exactly right, Andre. The homeless crisis is a real serious problem. I don't enjoy going to San Francisco much anymore because the homeless crisis has kind of gotten out of control, especially down south of Market and Union Square and things like that, or Union Station, no, Union Square, and but it's a difficult situation. I mean, mental illness and poverty and stuff like that is rampant in certain parts, and people end up homeless. And there isn't a great safety net. I mean, look at people even trying to apply for unemployment benefits when they lost their jobs, and people are waiting in line for 7 hours trying to, trying to make ends meet. So that's a tough thing. I mean, I think it's, when you have families that are kind of pushed to the brink because they expect unemployment benefits to be there, and then now everybody, a third of the people are unemployed in that particular region, and nobody's got enough unemployment benefits. So let's see. So Anoni says, Gordon, you've been to London before for extended period of time? Question mark. Yeah, I have. If so, what do you make of it? I ask because I live here and I'm always fascinated to know how other people view what other people's view of London is. So I love London, and next time I'm there, we'll try to meet up with a bunch of people. There are a bunch of Quora followers from London, including some of the people from the London office of Quora itself. So I look forward to next time I'm there, it'll probably be 7 to 10 days. I was there for I think 3 or 4 days, 4 or 5 days, something like that. The last time I was there from the 3rd of August to the 10th, I think. So I was there for 7 days, but and it was great. I mean, I loved it. I have I have a lot of love for it. I'm allergic to mold, so it's a tough place for me to be. I have respiratory problems bad enough anyway, but there's not a single building in England, in London, that doesn't have mold, and that's kind of hard for me. So it's unfortunate, but it's everythings are musty and wet and mildewy and things like that. So it's not fun. But yeah, I'll follow you on here. Let me take a screenshot and I'll follow you if I don't already, and then we'll stay in touch. And I'll see you about connecting when I'm back in London next time. So, but yeah, we're working on some stuff now that probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks should come together, and hopefully I'll get a chance to get back to London here soon. So. But no, the next thing is as soon as LA opens back up. Unfortunately, one of my contacts from Asia, their U.S. subsidiary is here in California, and the director of that partnership actually got COVID. He survived, but he's still staying out of circulation and things like that. So, but and I was supposed to be there at second week of March, and I was supposed to be in Singapore the first week or two of April. Unfortunately, because of COVID, all that stuff got delayed. But hey, Andrea, you're in LA. Well, for sure, next time I come out there, I mean, I've got a bunch of people that are out in LA that want to get together, and so hopefully we'll get a chance to do that. And here I'll capture that. And if you guys also want to check out my LinkedIn in my profile, you'll be able to. I'll be going through that and looking for who lives where, and then connecting on posts via LinkedIn, as well as some stuff on my website at gordonmiller.com. I'll post some stuff there, as well as the Truth Unfiltered on Quora. And of course, I'll probably post it here on Instagram and YouTube as well. So, but anyway, I have another call that I've got to do here at 6:30. These calls have been going really well. People have been looking forward to opportunities. For the month of May, I put in a 30-minute call so that people could afford it during the COVID lockdown, and they've been very popular. So 30 minutes as well as 60-minute calls. And thank you, Vishnu. I appreciate that. I've enjoyed my watches and my cars over the years. Of course, ironically, this is the one that I posted on Instagram. It's a replica. It's not marked as a Rolex. It's made by another manufacturer, and it's an astounding copy, and weight's about the same, keeps time great, things like that, and it costs like $90. That QR code, for the watch is over on my Instagram. If you check out the QR code, it takes you right to. I don't make anything on it, so but for people who like it, it's really just so much better than paying $7,000 for the real thing. So, and it's a great watch. It really is. So, anyway, if any of you guys, I apologize for it being so late for my folks in parts of Asia and people catching it on the rebroadcast or things like that. Some people have asked if I could do it earlier. I tried it earlier a couple times, and unfortunately, most of my clients are here in the United States or Canada or parts of Western Europe and things like that. So, when I switched the time so more people in India could tune in, we also didn't get quite the tune in that we normally would in terms of total number of viewers. Viewership was about half what it was, and of course, we booked almost no calls. And my point is not to make money by booking calls, but my point is to help people and create opportunities, and work on equity opportunities in companies that need help. So if you want to, if you can't catch this thing live and you want to talk to me, you can go to gordonmiller.com and you can book a call. And most of the half-hour calls typically run an hour anyway, and the hour-long calls run an hour and a half. So, but anyway. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Sorry it's not going to be a full hour, but, again, sorry for all the technical problems. YouTube has been, that one phone has been giving me some problems. So I appreciate everybody's patience, and hope everybody has a great night. And so we will we'll get back to this on Wednesday. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. See you. Bye.